Hello, this is Mrs. Blaylock for solving using quadratic formula. So I've got a worksheet that is accompanying Flex A right here. I'm going to go over number 19 to show you how to use the quadratic formula. Quadratic equations come in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is our leading coefficient on our quadratic term, b is the coefficient of our linear term, and c is our constant. So given number 19, negative 2x squared plus 7x plus 10, my a value is negative 2, my b value is 7, and my c value is 10. Now I need to use the quadratic formula to solve for x. The quadratic formula is x equals, so don't forget that part, we are solving for x, we're finding our x-intercept or our roots or our solutions or our zeros. So x equals, and I'm going to sing along with you, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I have my a, my b, and my c. I just have to use the formula. So x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 2, times c, which is 10, all under the square root. And that's all over 2 times a, so 2 times negative 2. Now I have to simplify using correct order of operations. So what I like to do first is negative 4 times negative 2 times 10. So negative 4 times negative 2 is 8, times 10 is 80. So I'm going to keep that in my brain for a second here. So I'm going to go negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared, which is 49, plus 80, that we just found out, all over 2 times negative 2, so negative 4. Now I have to do 49 plus 80, got my calculator right here. So we've got equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 129 all over negative 4. Now I can check 129 and see if there's a perfect square that goes into it. And sadly there is not. So this is pretty much as simplified as you can get. If you want to, you can make, since this is a negative over a negative, you can make it positive. We'll be adding and subtracting anyway. So it's your preference. So x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 129 over 4, or x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 129. I don't know why I did that. I meant to write x equals 7 plus the square root of 129, or x equals 7 minus the square root of 129 over 4. So you can either leave it like this, you can separate it out. In this particular case, if you don't like a negative over negative, you can change the sign. But it doesn't, you don't have to write it separately unless you can simplify it. So my two solutions are 7 plus square root of 129 over 4, or x equals 7 minus square root of 129 over 4. I do know there was one thing I wanted to tell you, I forgot to tell you, and that is if you ended up with, let's just say, 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 over 2. When you have a negative, so this is just FYI, when you have a negative under the radical, don't forget that the square root of negative 1 is equivalent to I. So in this case, if that was my solution from a quadratic equation, a quadratic formula, then it would be 7 plus or minus the square root of 3i over 2, or 7 plus or minus I square root of 3, depending on how you like to write it. So just don't forget that the square root of negative 1 is I.